the buyer P.O.C.A is, right? It, of course, starts with the setup. Do you remember the setup? It's the same as the seller setup. So I think if we were to write down the steps, which I did not make a slide for, it would be reassure, right? Remember reassure, I'm not going to put pressure on you. Then it would be the fall-through list. So we're going to show them something. Remember when we were in Myrtle Beach, we talked about the expired list, right? But today with the buyer P.O.C.A, we want to do a fall-through list. Do you have a fall-through list? Can you pull that out of your MLS? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We just don't call it a fall-through list. What is it called, Laura? What is it called?
Back on the market.
Back on the market. B-O.M. Back on the market, right? Well, we're just giving it a new name because that's what we do in the Wickman family. That's where all these tools came from. They, we name them something. So it's a fall-through list, but it's really, when you pull it off the computer, it's a back on the market list. And then it's fear of loss. I love that you're writing notes. What did you write so far? First thing, reassure, fall-through list, fear of loss. Okay? And that's going to launch us into the buyer P.O.C.A. Got your notes done? I'm waiting for you to finish, and then I want you to hear it, and then I want you to say it. Okay? So you're sitting down face to face with that buyer. Of course, you lean back in your seat, and you small talk. You broke the ice because that's what we always do. Is make them like you first, as long as that takes, right? Get them to lower their defenses. And then you lean forward, you sit up, and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I just wanted to start our meeting today by assuring you that I didn't invite you here into my office so that I could sell you a house, put pressure on you, cause you to make a decision that you would regret. I think probably about 85% of my business is referral. In other words, I do a good job for someone, they send me their friends, their family. Last thing I'd ever do is jeopardize a relationship with you that would damage my business. It's just not how I'm built. Are you folks familiar with the fall-through list at all? I brought one along with me. What this is here is a list of people that were sitting with their realtor, just like you and I are sitting here today. And all of these people have two things in common. The first thing they have in common is every one of them said, we want to buy a house. In fact, this is a list of addresses of the houses they chose. They said, we want to move into this house. This is going to be our new address. But the second thing they all have in common is none of them moved into that house. I don't know how you feel about that, but it seems to me like something went wrong somewhere along the way. Someone made a mistake. So to prevent that from happening to you and me, to prevent you from deciding on a house and then never moving into it, here at On Track Real Estate, we've developed a process. It's got some steps. May I share that with you? That's the buyer P.O.C.A. You got the notes already. So, well, and I think that's where, as you explain agency, because that's step one of your P.O.C.A, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, are you familiar with agency at all? Have you heard the word? Well, basically the state of Nevada says, before you and I are going to go on a date, we got to express our intentions before we can get off the front porch. Dad wants to know, what are you planning on having come out of this relationship? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about agency because that's the state requirement. But the truth is, not everybody does this all the same way. See, what I like to do, I like to represent my buyers. Now, by the way, you say whatever you like, right? How you want to establish an agency relationship with this buyer. Now, I like to represent the buyer. And some buyers don't think that they need to choose a realtor. Some buyers think the best way to do this is just go out there and whoever can find me a house first, that's who gets paid. Are you familiar with how I get paid, by the way? Oh, can I just take a minute and explain it to you? Oh, here, draw a circle. I was thinking I had a flip chart easel here. Draw a circle on your page, would you? Draw a circle.
Easel pad cover?
Easel pad? Oh, thank you. All right, cut it in half. See, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when you buy a house, there's a commission that's going to be paid, and the seller has already agreed to pay it. So half of that money is going to go to the agent that's representing the seller and that company, right? Now the other half, oh, I need a marker, thank you, John. The other half is gonna go to the buyer agent and the buyer company. Now, if you were to decide that you wanted to work with me, and I was to decide that I think I can sell you a house, find you a house, thank you, then that would come, this part would come to me and to On Track Realty. So my company and I have a split, you know, they provide the building and the, you know, mow the grass and run the copy machine. I just sell the houses. So this is, for example, what I would earn. By the way, I don't think it's anybody's business what your split is. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Right. But out of this comes all kinds of things like my education, my licensing fees, my gas, all my marketing stuff. And so when you buy a house, this is what I'm going to end up walking away with. Now that might seem like a very small amount to you, but I got to tell you, it's just enough for me, provided I know I'm going to get it. See, any agent that's really good in our marketplace, this is the way that they work with a buyer. They say, I'll tell you what, I'll work hard for you. We'll leave no stone unturned, and you just promise that I get this wedge of the pie. Sometimes buyers think, oh, no, I want to work with a whole bunch of different realtors, and whoever finds me the right house, they get the wedge of the pie. Well, I don't know any top agents that'll do it that way. Boy, I'll work really hard for you on a chance that I might get paid. See, the way you get someone to work hard for you is you promise them they're going to get paid. Does this make any sense at all? Yeah. See, today I'm going to ask you for a decision. Do you want to work with me? And I'm going to give you my decision. Do I feel like I can find you the right house? And if we decide mutually to work together, then we'll move forward after today's appointment. Does this make any sense at all? All right, well, that's just the first step. The second step is I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I got to understand what it is that you want in the property that you buy. But you know, more important than what you want is what do you need? What do you absolutely have to have, not negotiable? And then we do all the financial part, because the worst thing in the world, ding, 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 here comes fear of loss, would be for you to find the right house and then find out later that you can't afford it. So I'm not even going to show you houses that you can't afford. That's why we get that done, step 2, before we go out looking at a bunch of houses. Does that make some sense to you? All right. Step 3 then is to find the right house, to select in what we call shop. Now again, here's where a lot of people out there in the marketplace make a mistake. Hey, let me ask you this, of the two of you, who's been the shopper on Zillow and Trulia, sitting up all night in your jammies, looking for houses? Which one of the two of you is that? Oh, I figured it was you, Kyle. Yeah. It's kind of fun, isn't it, when you first start out, looking at all those houses? Well, let me ask you this. So are you serious about finding a house now? I mean, you've been shopping for how long, Kyle?
We've been looking on the internet for 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. All right. Are you serious about finding a house now?
We have our pre-approval letter. We're finally ready to go.
Yeah. So today we stop using Zillow and Trulia. And I'll tell you why. We're going to draw a line in the dirt as of today. See, once I have a good handle on what you can afford, what you're looking for, once you and I decide, okay, we're moving forward, we're really going to find you a house, we can't be using Zillow and Trulia. That's one of these mechanisms that hook buyers in. Heck, half the properties on there are already sold. There's new people living in the house. You think it's a property that you want to go see. We got to get all that done. As of today, we're going to draw a line in the dirt. We're going to look at only those properties that are actually for sale from here forward. And in fact, if we don't find your house today or tomorrow or maybe by the next day, it probably takes me 1, 2, or 3 days. And after that, it's simply a matter of looking at everything that's new that hits the market. And we've got a kind of a higher level system for doing that here at On Track Realty. So it's not that consumer thing. And you looking at all those properties is just going to get you confused. Did we consider this one? Did we not? As of today or tomorrow, we're going to have all of those eliminated. Anything that's on the market right now, we know it's either a fit for you or it isn't. Does that make some sense? And I'll show you that as we go along today. By the way, just out of curiosity, you've probably met with a few other realtors, haven't you, Hugh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have any of them explained things quite like this at all to you?
No, we jumped in the car and off we went.
Yeah. It's time now when you're serious, right? All right, here's the next item. You know, you've probably been reading about the hot market out there, yes? And listings are selling, properties are on the market, there's less to choose from, there's competitive offers. This is why it's even more important than ever to find a realtor that you really believe in, that you think has high selling skills. Because Heather, the last thing I ever want you to do is find a house that you like, you want to move in, and then end up losing out because there's 5 other offers. So when you choose the realtor you are going to work with, is you got to find someone that you think is a good salesperson. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because right now, a seller puts their house on the market, they could have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 offers on a property. You get 5 offers on a property, that means 4 people have chosen to buy that house and they're going to be disappointed. And I don't want that to happen to you. So what I've done that's different than everybody else is I've worked at my negotiating skills. In fact, I just came out of a Master Sales Academy. And I got to tell you something, there were only 2 other realtors from my state that were at that thing. And none of them live in this town, none of them specialize in this area. So my selling skills are sharp, and that's exactly the kind of person you need if you're going to end up buying the house you got your heart set on. It also means, though, you got to trust that agent. If it's me, you got to trust me that when I tell you what you got to do to win so that you get the house that you want, you got to believe that it's not for me. I mean, I can sell houses to anybody. It's for you. When I give you advice, it's because that's what it's going to take for you to get that house. Does that make sense? By the way, how are we doing so far, you and me? I mean, are you feeling like you kind of trust me? I'm feeling like a click with you. I mean, I think we're kind of a good fit here. And then finally, coordinate. You know, sometimes it's not just finding a house, it's not just negotiating and beating out those other 3 or 4 buyers. It's what happens after that, because there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. And I don't mean to freak you out, John, but you know, prices are going up. And sometimes appraisers get a little nervous. So sometimes we got properties where the appraisal comes in low, or the inspection is, you know, the inspectors are worried that you're going to sue them because they didn't point out every little flaw. And so sometimes keeping it together can be a challenge. And that's, again, where you've got to choose a realtor that you believe, that you really trust, is going to be able to navigate those waters and get you from finding a house and negotiating a house all the way to moving in. Because what good does it do if you never move into the house? I mean, ultimately, that is your objective, right, Joni? Okay, so this is basically what I do. And what I'd like to do with your blessings is start by really explaining agency in full in our state. Fair enough? Okay.